Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Muppets from Space from 1999. And this is the winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. And this is sort of the end of a series of Muppet movies that were all voted on for me to review by my patrons. I had previously reviewed the more recent Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted movies, but hadn't reviewed the other theatrical films, and because of your guys' choice, I have. So thank you. This is a crazy series that was entirely voted on by you, the fans, and selected by patrons, and I think that's actually really cool, and I'm glad I did it. It's been a cool, weird series that's been going on over the past year or so, and I really like it because it's been a fun journey. So thank you guys very much. Thank you also for all the support and how great you are as a fan base, as well as this was a cool series that you guys wanted me to do, and now I have done it. So thank you. Muppets from Space is kind of a strange movie in terms of when you look at the other Muppet theatrical films. It doesn't have any original songs in it. It mainly has funk music, actually, 70s funk kind of music in it. It isn't a literary adaptation like the previous two Muppet movies, Muppet Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol, and it's not really directed by a Muppet kind of person. Much like the Muppet movie was directed by someone who'd done like TV and Monkey episodes, this guy, Tim Hill, was mostly known for being an animator. So it's sort of strange in all of the Muppet movies because it sort of doesn't make sense. I know people don't really like it. It's often considered maybe the worst of the theatrical Muppet films. I have never felt that way. I don't know if maybe I can say there is one that is worse, but I'm trying not to. I'm not being a jerk here. I'm actually saying I've actually always really enjoyed this. I saw it in theaters, which I thought was its opening day, but when I looked up, it's confusing what its opening day is, but whatever. I did see it the first Friday I could, I guess. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I didn't know anyone who was overly excited about it. I always thought it was kind of like a fun Muppet film. Now, watching it after watching all these other Muppet movies, I have to say it does feel like very much of a come down after sort of the triumphs of Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island. And if you look at critics at the time, and I remember even people telling me who went on Muppet forums and stuff, which I do not know how to find those at this point, but that people were really disappointed and felt like maybe the Muppets had kind of run their course or something. I don't think it's as harsh as that, really. I think this movie is still a lot of fun. I still enjoy it. When I was really thinking about it, I was watching, I was like, oh, I think I had seen it over the years, and every time it's like a pleasant kind of warm blanket thing. It's not a movie I come to very much, but it's a film I've always have had pleasant memories of. Now, Muppets from Space is basically about Gonzo. This is a Gonzo feature. He feels like he doesn't belong, which is echoed in the Muppet movie where he has the song, I'm going to go back there someday. And this sort of reflects that idea that he feels he's missing somewhere. He's getting sort of psychic messages from aliens in his cereal and all over the place. He's trying to call to them. Or at the same time, the government, with Jeffrey Tambor and his assistant Bobo the Bear, working for the government, trying to find Gonzo and be able to track when these aliens are going to come. And the Muppets are trying to be supportive of Gonzo, but feel like he's going a bit crazy. He goes kind of crazy with it, goes on the TV, interrupts Miss Piggy's big UFO television show, and then is kind of captured and put into a government holding facility. The Muppets have to get him out, but it's basically about him kind of reconnecting with his alien people. I don't really want to tell you more than that. I think all of that is fine. One of the things I noticed that apparently there was a previous version of the script that referenced a lot of alien stuff that was going on at the time. And it's sort of weird when that at the time, this was a year after the X-Files movie. The X-Files was a huge pop culture phenomenon. It doesn't really reference, apparently there's other versions that are going to reference Men in Black and Contact, but I think the X-Files would have made a lot of sense that, you don't have to go super crazy with it, but I think that would have been funny. Even the Simpsons were doing it, everyone was doing it. So it's sort of strange they don't do as many references with that, and I think that honestly would have worked, or even had cameos from Mulder and Scully. They don't. They have Kathy Griffin and Katie Holmes and Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek and stuff, and F. Murray Abraham as Moses, which I quite enjoyed that actually, or Ray Liotta. They sort of don't fully get into it, and I know Frank Oz says it's not up to what it should have been, and not the movie we wanted to make. There's no big Muppet moment. There's not even a shot of them riding a bike or something really visually impressive. It very much feels like a 90s production, kind of kids movie type of film, starring the Muppets. Like, you could honestly take the Muppets out of this movie and have it star regular people, and it could kind of sort of work in a way, probably more so than any of the other adaptations, which really, even though the Muppets, like Muppet Treasure Island and stuff, isn't written as like Muppets being in there, it's also kind of weird. Like, literally, this to Muppet Treasure Island gives me whiplash. Like, it's just such a jarring experience in terms of like the ambitious direction, having original songs, all that. Apparently they were going to have original songs at one point. There's one called Eye to the Sky, which was going to be written by Ween, and then a kind of a new rendition of I'm Going to Go Back There Someday, which they don't have at all. And I felt like that heart was definitely missing while watching this in comparison to the other Muppet films, which obviously, since I watched them, since you all made me though, but since I've watched them all in a row, I'm going to do that. The songs in Muppet films really sell the heart and the ideas of it, and without that, it did feel a little emptier. I think for like a kids film at the time, and I didn't really feel like kids films in the late 90s were and early 2000s are like, you know, amazing or anything like that. I actually think this is fairly good. And this is directed by Tim Hill, who actually was more known for animation. He worked on Kablam, Rocko's Modern Life, stuff like that, but he also helped develop SpongeBob SquarePants, which would actually premiere a couple days after this movie came out. The first episode, he helped work on the first SpongeBob movie, and he's directing SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water, which will come out at some point, as well as Max Keeble's big movie and the Grumpy Cat movie, so good for him. But although his live action career has something to be desired, and I remember at the time when I saw this, looking at it on IMDb and being a little confused why he was tasked at directing this. I think Brian Henson, who did the previous two, would actually do like a much better job, and I know he was doing more overarching Muppet things with the Henson Company and stuff. Maybe he didn't want to, I guess, but I really wish he had. I think he would have done a better job. Tim Hill's sort of interesting in that he does have an animation background. You can kind of get that in the house. Feels like a Saturday morning type thing. Like, what if all the Muppets lived in a house? That feels like cartoon, or, you know, like Muppet Babies did. It feels like more of a cartoony thing. His shots feel like that. But thing is like puppets aren't animation, and they shouldn't be shot or storyboarded like that. And I think that's sort of like why this sort of failed. He also, like, the camera isn't very adventurous. He's not really an experimental director at all. It seems like he's good at writing, but the directing in this, I did feel like was lacking, and it wasn't amazing. It is interesting Frank Oz in this because he had such a crazy 1999. He was in Phantom Menace as Yoda. He was in this, and Elmo and Grouchland would be his final two. Kind of, he would retire from puppeteering after that, and he also directed Bowfinger, which I also saw in theaters that same summer. I do still have my ticket stub, which will be on screen now. So I saw Muppets from Space the day I thought it came out, and it came out, in my mind, actually, the same time as Eyes Wide Shut. I was like 15 at the time, and I was a big Stanley Kubrick fan, and I had to see the last Stanley Kubrick movie, and my dad agreed to take me on that Saturday. He had agreed to take me, so I didn't need to sneak into Eyes Wide Shut, because one of my parents was going to take me to Eyes Wide Shut. As uncomfortable as you can imagine that could be. But all my friends bought tickets for Muppets from Space and then went and saw Eyes Wide Shut. And I knew a lot of people who actually did that. Why they picked most kid-friendly movie of the bunch when you had things like Blair Witch Project and all these other things, I don't know. But everyone I know who bought tickets to Muppets from Space, I'm the only one who actually saw Muppets from Space. And I saw Eyes Wide Shut, and I paid for both, so screw you guys. But I do like that they supported Muppets from Space. I know this film didn't really do that well, but I appreciate that they did that. I remember at the time, I'm like, well, at least they're supporting, you know, the Muppets. I think we can all agree that was good. Funny story also, in addition to that, which is really off topic, but whatever, I actually bought a ticket to Austin Powers 2 the next week because I thought, okay, everyone snuck into Eyes Wide Shut. I want to see American Pie, and that's like so I'm going to buy a ticket to Austin Powers 2 and then go to American Pie. And then the lady who sold me the ticket was behind me and was following me, and then called me out and was screaming like he's trying to sneak into the wrong movie. And then I had to see Austin Powers 2. I just ran into Austin Powers 2, which is the movie I was supposed to see. Anyway, so Muppets from Space. I have a certain fondness for this film because I did see it, and it was part of like that big Eyes Wide Shut weekend. Believe it or not, I think that film really overshadowed this movie and really hurt its box office potential. And you're probably like, those are such different demographics, I don't see why. That film took up any reviews or any news magazine was mainly focused on Eyes Wide Shut. It, like, even Entertainment Tonight, I think, was 60% Eyes Wide Shut, And like, all other entertainment news had to fit into that weekend. So Muppets from Space just did not have any room to sort of breathe. And I remember some papers didn't even review it because they're like, well, we're going to do a huge essay on Eyes Wide Shut and we'll like get to that Muppet thing later maybe. And then they just didn't. And it wasn't a great summer for kind of like more family friendly things. It felt like everyone just saw Star Wars and Tarzan and then just like, said c'est la vie, like look at what happened with Iron Giant as well. I've always liked this film. I guess, when I was watching it, I was like, sure, it's a lesser effort. It's a different effort. It's a different kind of Muppet movie. I sort of like the funk in it. You can kind of tell it's certain sequences, like the opening with the house, that there's probably more of a musical sequence to Brick House than we saw in the finished film. It feels like sometimes they cut around things or trying to get things to work. Not totally, but I like 70s funk music. I like the Muppets. For what this film is trying to accomplish, I think it works out for it. Is it maybe like the least ambitious Muppets movie ever made? Yeah, absolutely. Its ambition is to just be a fun little Muppet film. And I think the ambitions of the previous two in this kind of post-Jim Henson era of these three, Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, and this, it kind of makes you want more from this movie. So I sort of get the reception of this film, but I still enjoy it. I do think, if you're going to get into Muppet movies, this is probably the least essential and all that. But are you going to have a good time? Are you going to laugh? Are you going to find it enjoyable? Absolutely. I've always laughed at Jeffrey Tambor with the bear. Like, that's a good duo. I've always liked, the Miss Piggy, Annie McDowell thing and all their gadgets, from like becoming invisible to like using this spray thing. I mean, I think it's fun. I like the idea of Gonzo being from another planet to a certain regard, even though I think they like dropped that entirely after this movie. This does feel like maybe the black sheep of the Muppet family, but it's a really enjoyable movie. I still have fun with it. I get it's not maybe for everyone, and maybe it's not what the Muppets will be remembered for. But if this is like the worst thing they ever made that went to theaters, that's really not that bad. I think it is an enjoyable, fun kind of like trifle of a Muppet film, and you leave smiling and go, that was fine, and that was it. And maybe that didn't hold up to, Stanley Kubrick's last cinematic opus or whatever. Thus why this felt like super underwhelming. But in terms of what the Muppets from Space is, I had a good time with it. And every time I've seen it, I've had a good time with it. It's not a movie that stays in your brain for a super long time. But it is a movie that while it's on, you're not really thinking about your troubles. You're just worried if Gonzo is going to be able to reach his family in space while listening to some funk music. Doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world to me. So if you have seen Muppets from Space and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And this is a winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a winner of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. And thank you all for having me do this whole series. It was great to do. I think you probably know who selected most of these Muppet movies, but he didn't select all of them. I will say that. But thank you for everyone who did select Muppet movies for people to vote on, and for getting me to review all these Muppet films. It's been a really great pleasure. I've been able to get my daughter more into the Muppets. And thank you so much for all that, and I'm glad I got to do this series. This was really cool.